The first memory I ever had of my sister was not one of comfort, but of comparison. We were born only minutes apart, two tiny girls with matching brown curls and identical dimples. Nurses called us the mirror twins. Family friends cooed about how lucky my parents were to have two beautiful daughters. But from the very beginning, those same voices would add, "Caroline has sharper features. She'll grow into a real beauty. And Claire, she's sweet, but quieter. The shy one." Even as toddlers, the world had already split us into categories: Caroline the radiant, confident one; me, Claire, the shadow following close behind. Childhood shadows. Caroline thrived under attention. At school recitals, she would sing the loudest, soaking in applause like sunlight. I was there too, standing next to her, singing the same song, but no one remembered my voice. At family gatherings, relatives pinched her cheeks and showered her with compliments. "She's destined for greatness." When they turned to me, the words shifted. "She's such a good listener, so patient." I learned early on that good listener was code for invisible. It wasn't that Caroline was cruel back then, not yet. She was charming, funny, magnetic. But her glow left little space for me. I felt myself shrinking, molding into whatever shape allowed me to survive next to her brilliance. The first crack. The first real crack between us appeared at 13. We were at a friend's birthday party, a summer evening filled with music and the sticky sweetness of melted ice cream. A boy from our class, Evan, handed me a soda. My cheeks flushed as he lingered near me. For once, I felt seen. But Caroline noticed too. Within minutes, she pulled Evan onto the dance floor, laughing loud enough to drown out the music. By the end of the night, they were holding hands. When I confronted her later, my voice shaking, she shrugged. "It's not my fault he likes me more. Don't take it so seriously, Claire." That was her pattern. Take what I wanted, dismiss my hurt, and leave me questioning whether I was too sensitive. Family roles. Our parents never meant harm, but they fueled the divide. Dad, strict and ambitious, admired Caroline's drive. "She's a leader," he often said, clapping her on the shoulder after a debate win or a soccer match. His eyes sparkled with pride when she spoke confidently about her future in law or business. With me, his tone softened. "Claire, you're thoughtful. The calm one. Every family needs balance." Mom tried to even the scales, but her words rang hollow. "You both have your strengths," she'd insist, though her gaze lingered longer on Caroline. By the time we entered college, Caroline was the star. She earned scholarships, internships, a growing circle of admirers. I studied literature quietly, finding solace in books, where sisters didn't always compete and truth had a way of emerging eventually. The spark of betrayal. After graduation, we both moved back home briefly. That's when the letters started. At first, I thought they were mistakes. Mail addressed to me from banks I'd never visited. Notices of overdue accounts. I laughed it off nervously. But then the phone calls began. Collectors demanding payments. Threatening legal action. My heart raced as I clutched the receiver. "You've got the wrong person," I insisted. "I never opened any account." They didn't believe me. I brought the first letter to Dad. His brow furrowed as he scanned the page. "Claire, this is serious. Are you in trouble financially?" "No. I swear I don't know what this is." Caroline leaned against the doorway, her lips twitching like she was suppressing a smile. "Maybe you signed something without realizing. You can be a little scatterbrained." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. The gathering storm. The notices multiplied. One evening, Dad called a family meeting in the kitchen. The air was heavy, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the silence. "Claire," he began, his voice grave, "these debts are piling up. We've received court notices now. How could you let it get this far?" Panic bubbled in my chest. I didn't. I never signed for anything. Someone is using my name. Caroline's eyes widened theatrically. "That's a serious accusation. Who would do that?" "Exactly," Dad said. "Why would anyone impersonate you, Claire?" "Because they could. Because they shared my face." But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I whispered, "I'm telling the truth." Dad's palm slammed the table. The sound vibrated through me. Enough excuses. You're an adult. Take responsibility. My vision blurred with tears. Why won't you believe me? Caroline's hand brushed Dad's arm gently, like a dutiful daughter easing his anger. Maybe she's just overwhelmed. Maybe if she admits the mistake, things can be fixed. Her calculated tone made my stomach twist. The breaking point. The final blow came on a stormy Thursday night. Rain hammered against the windows as Dad paced the kitchen, holding yet another notice. His face was flushed with fury. This one's for $20,000, he spat. Claire, this could ruin us. Do you even understand the gravity of this? I shook my head, trembling. I didn't do it. Caroline's voice sliced through the air. Dad, maybe it's time to face the truth. She's lying. My breath caught. Caroline, how can you say that? She shrugged, her eyes gleaming. You've always been jealous. Maybe this is your way of acting out. You want attention. The words pierced deeper than any blade. Attention? That's what she thought this was about? Dad's decision came swiftly, like a gavel striking. Until you take responsibility, Claire, you cannot stay here. Pack your things tonight. The room spun. You're kicking me out? His silence was answer enough. Caroline's lips curved, almost imperceptibly. It's for the best. Exile. I packed in silence, my hands trembling as I stuffed clothes into a duffel bag. Each item felt like it belonged to a life I was being forced to abandon. Caroline leaned against my doorway, arms crossed. I really wish you hadn't lied, she murmured. Her voice was calm, but her eyes glinted with triumph. I turned sharply. This was you, wasn't it? Her smile didn't falter. Prove it. The words left me hollow. That night, I stepped into the rain with nothing but my bag. Dad didn't come to the door. Mom stood behind him, silent, her face pale with helplessness. As the bus pulled away from the station, I pressed my forehead to the glass. The raindrops streaking down matched the tears on my cheeks. I was alone, cast out. But beneath the grief, a spark of determination flickered. If Caroline wanted me erased, she would soon learn I wasn't so easy to destroy. The city greeted me with indifference. Its streets buzzed with hurried footsteps and the constant growl of buses, but no one noticed the young woman stepping off with a single duffel bag and eyes swollen from crying. For the first time in my life, I had no home to return to. I found a room in a rundown boarding house near the edge of downtown. The paint peeled from the walls, and the hallways reeked faintly of mildew, but it was cheap, and at least the lock on the door worked. Nights were the hardest. I lay awake listening to the drip of a leaky faucet and the muffled arguments of neighbors through thin walls. My father's words echoed in my mind. Until you take responsibility, you cannot stay here. Each time, my chest ached as if the wound had been reopened. But despair wasn't an option. Rent loomed, hunger gnawed, and I needed work. The job hunt. For 2 weeks, I scoured classifieds and walked door to door, my resume folded and creased from overuse. Rejections piled up. We're not hiring. You don't have enough experience. Or worse, the suspicious frowns when they glanced at my ID. Perhaps my name had already been tarnished beyond these walls. Finally, a small clothing boutique took pity on me. It's part-time, the manager said, adjusting her glasses. Mostly folding, stocking, and helping customers. Minimum wage. Can you start tomorrow? I nodded eagerly, relief flooding me. That little shop became my sanctuary. The smell of new fabric, the hum of hangers sliding across racks. It was ordinary, but ordinary was what I craved. Meeting Maya. Her laughter reached me before she did. A bright, unrestrained sound that cut through the monotony of the store. Need help with those jeans? She asked, her red hair tumbling out of a loose bun as she knelt to refold a stack I had accidentally knocked over. I flushed. Sorry. Still getting the hang of it. No worries. She flashed a grin. I'm Maya. Been here 2 years. You? Claire. First week. Well, welcome to the madhouse. Customers can be terrifying, but the paychecks don't bounce. Her humor was infectious. Over the next days, We worked side by side, sharing complaints about long shifts and swapping stories during breaks. Where I was quiet, she was bold, unafraid to speak her mind. Yet beneath her sarcasm, I sensed a kindness she didn't flaunt. One evening, as we closed the shop, she glanced at me. "You look like someone carrying a boulder on her back. What's your story?" I hesitated. The shame of exile was heavy, but something about Maya's directness invited honesty. So I told her about the loans, the accusations, my family's rejection. By the time I finished, my throat was raw. Maya whistled. "That's messed up. But Claire, this screams identity theft. Someone's using your name." I froze. Identity theft? Yeah. Happened to my cousin once. Some jerk opened credit card in her name. Took months to fix. She studied me. "Do you know anyone who looks like you? Someone who could pull it off?" The image came instantly. Caroline's face, identical to mine. I shook my head quickly. No one. But Maya's suspicion lingered in my chest like a splinter. The first clue. Weeks passed, and I settled into a fragile rhythm. Work, cheap dinners, restless nights. But the shadow of debt followed me. Letters forwarded from my parents' house began arriving at the boarding house. My hands trembled each time I opened one. One afternoon, a man in a suit entered the boutique. He scanned the racks before approaching me. "Claire Bennett." "Yes." My voice wavered. He handed me a folder. "You've been served." I stared at the papers in horror. Court summons for defaulted loans. Maya rushed over after he left. "What is it?" I showed her the documents, my hands shaking. "They want me in court." She flipped through them, her eyes narrowing. "These loans, they were taken 2 years ago. You said you never opened them, right?" "Never." She tapped a page. "Then let's find out who did." Digging deeper. The next Saturday, Maya insisted we visit one of the credit unions listed on the documents. My stomach churned as we entered the sterile building, the smell of disinfectant sharp in the air. A teller smiled warmly. "Hello again. How can we help you today, Ms. Bennett?" I blinked. "Again?" "Yes, you came in 2 years ago to finalize your loan. I remember, you had that lovely necklace with the blue pendant." My mind spun. I had never owned such a necklace. Maya leaned closer to me, whispering, "This is it, Claire. Someone came here pretending to be you." The teller pulled up files on her computer. "See? Right here, loan signed, ID verified, photo taken." She turned the screen slightly. My heart nearly stopped. The image staring back was my face, but not mine. The posture, the smile, the gleam in the eyes. I knew it as well as my own reflection. Caroline. Shattered realization. I stumbled out of the building, air catching in my throat. The street tilted around me. Maya grabbed my arm. "Claire, are you okay?" It was her. The words clawed out of my throat. "Caroline. My sister. She did this." Maya's jaw tightened. "The twin, right? Makes sense. Who better to pass as you?" Tears burned my eyes. "Why? Why would she do this to me?" Maya's gaze softened. "Because she could. And because she knew you'd take the fall." I pressed my palms to my face, memories rushing back. Caroline smirking as Dad yelled at me, her voice dripping with false sympathy. She had orchestrated everything. For years, I'd lived in her shadow. Now, she had stolen not just attention, but my very identity, the seed of resolve. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the cracked ceiling of my tiny room, fury and grief twisting inside me. She had ruined my name, turned my family against me, left me homeless. But beneath the anguish, something hardened. I would not stay broken. If Caroline wanted war, then war she would have. And this time, I would not lose. Claire's room was nearly empty now. She had spent the previous night packing, folding each dress, stacking every book, and tucking away the few pieces of jewelry she still cared for. But the act was not simple. Every time her hands brushed over an old diary, an old scarf, or the photo frame of her childhood birthday, her heart cracked a little more. This wasn't just a room, it was the container of her dreams, her safety, her laughter. And now she was abandoning it, forced out not by strangers, but by her own blood. The early morning light streamed through the curtains. The world outside was beginning to wake. Temple bells rang faintly in the distance, and the soft call of dawn prayers drifted on the cool air. For everyone else, it was just another day. For Claire, it was the end of a life she had known. The confrontation with her mother. She found her mother, Margaret, in the kitchen. The familiar smell of tea leaves simmering filled the air. Margaret was rolling dough, her hands moving with the same mechanical rhythm they always did. But when her eyes lifted and met Claire's, her hands faltered. "You're leaving?" Margaret's voice was low, almost trembling. Claire tightened her grip on the suitcase handle. "Yes. When your own family treats you like a stranger, there's no reason left to stay." Her mother's lips parted, as though she wanted to say something comforting. For a heartbeat, Claire almost hoped she would. But then Margaret's face hardened, and she turned back to the stove. "I only want what's best for you," she said stiffly. Sometimes keeping the family's reputation matters more than what one person feels. Claire's throat burned. Reputation? That's what this is about. You chose appearances over your own daughter. Caroline spun her lies, and you believed her, without a second thought. You never even asked me what really happened. Margaret's shoulders shook, though she tried to hold back the tears. "Enough, Claire. What's done is done." Claire swallowed the lump in her throat. Her voice lowered into a whisper. "You didn't just doubt me, Mother. You broke me." She picked up her bag and walked out of the kitchen. Her father's silence. As she stepped through the hallway, she saw her father, Richard. He sat on the sofa with his morning paper spread wide, his reading glasses perched on the tip of his nose. For a moment, Claire hesitated, her heart aching for one final gesture, just one word that told her she still mattered to him. "Dad," her voice cracked. Richard didn't even lift his eyes from the paper. "Make sure you close the door on your way out." The words were like a blade sliding into her chest. Cold. Final. Claire stood frozen for a moment, staring at him, her lips trembling. But she realized then there would be no saving bond here. The father she had once adored had chosen silence over her. She turned away, forcing her tears to stay hidden, and walked toward the gate. Caroline's victory. Standing there, waiting as though for the perfect audience, was Caroline. Her younger sister leaned casually against the gatepost, her lips curled into a smile that dripped with mock sweetness. "Going somewhere, dear sister?" Caroline's tone was syrupy, but the malice in her eyes glistened sharp as glass. Claire's fingers clenched into fists at her sides. "You've won, Caroline. You've turned everyone against me. But remember, lies don't last forever. One day the truth will rise, and when it does, you'll have nothing left to hide behind." Caroline tilted her head and smirked. "Maybe. But today, I'm inside the house and you're out. That's all that matters." Claire bit back the surge of anger boiling inside her. She refused to give Caroline the satisfaction of seeing her break. Without another word, she flagged down a passing rickshaw and climbed inside. As it rattled away down the road, she allowed herself one last glance at the house, her childhood, her roots, her memories. It all blurred behind a wall of tears. A fragile shelter. By the afternoon, Claire had moved into a modest hostel on the far side of the city. The room was bare, just a narrow bed, a small desk, and a single window overlooking a noisy street. The walls were pale and chipped, the air heavy with the faint scent of mildew. Yet this room was hers, and at least here, no one could accuse her of lies. But loneliness pressed in quickly. For the first time, she had no safety net, no family, no place to run when nights grew heavy with silence. That evening, Claire pulled out her old diary and began to write, pouring her pain into words. "They did not believe me. They did not even listen. My own mother, my own father, both turned away. Caroline wears her crown of lies, but I will not break. One day, the truth will cut through the darkness. One day, she will face the weight of what she has done." Her pen trembled, yet her words burned with determination. As the ink spread across the page, Claire felt something shift inside her. Her tears dried. A fire ignited. The end of part 1. Claire's exile from her home was not just a tragedy, it was the birth of something new. She had lost her family, her comfort, her foundation. But in losing it all, she had uncovered the raw, unyielding strength inside her. Caroline might have won the first battle, but Claire vowed silently in the solitude of that cramped hostel room. Claire sat on the edge of the narrow hostel bed, her suitcase tucked under the iron frame like a buried coffin. The room was quiet except for the hum of a ceiling fan that creaked with every turn. A faded curtain fluttered at the window, letting in the faint smell of the busy street outside, fried food, dust, and exhaust fumes. For the first time in her life, she had no roof that carried the warmth of belonging. This wasn't a home. It was shelter, temporary and impersonal. And yet, she told herself, it was better than living in a house poisoned by lies. She opened her diary again, the one thread of continuity between her past and her uncertain present. Her words bled across the page. I lost everything, but I still have myself. I still have the truth. That is enough for now. But as her pen scratched against paper, reality pressed in. Truth didn't pay rent. Truth didn't buy food. And truth didn't silence the gnawing ache in her chest. First days in the hostel. The hostel was crowded, mostly filled with girls who worked as clerks, waitresses, or shop assistants. Some eyed Claire with curiosity when she arrived, her tidy clothes and refined speech hinting at a background different from theirs. Others didn't bother to look at her at all. Her roommate, a short, sharp-eyed girl named Maya, was friendly enough. On the first night, she leaned against her bed frame and asked bluntly, "So, what's your story? You don't look like someone who belongs here." Claire forced a smile. "I just needed a change." Maya didn't press further, though the curiosity in her gaze lingered. Over the next few days, Claire noticed that Maya worked long shifts at a local bookstore, returning late but always humming to herself. She seemed used to hardship in a way Claire wasn't yet. Claire, on the other hand, spent her mornings staring at the hostel ceiling, her heart heavy with the need to do something, anything. She couldn't sit idle forever. Claire's first attempts at finding work were humiliating. She walked through streets filled with job postings taped to shop windows. She inquired at offices, at cafes, even at small tailoring shops. But each time she was asked for her qualifications, her references, her experience, she faltered. Back home, she had dreamed of university, of a career in writing or journalism. But Caroline's constant sabotage had left her reputation smeared. She had dropped out before she could even prove herself. One shop owner looked her up and down before shaking his head. "Too delicate. You wouldn't last a week here." Another employer, a middle-aged woman running a cafe, told her, "We need someone reliable. You look like you'd run away at the first sign of trouble." Each rejection tightened the knot of shame in her stomach. She returned to the hostel with blistered feet and an empty heart. That night, Maya found her sitting by the window, staring out at the city lights. "No luck?" Maya asked, slipping off her shoes. Claire shook her head. "No one wants to take a chance on me." Maya leaned closer, her tone pragmatic. "The world doesn't hand out chances. You have to claw at it, even when your hands bleed." Claire let those words sink in. They sounded harsh, but perhaps they were the truth she needed. A small break. It was on the 5th day that Claire stumbled upon a bookstore tucked into a narrow alley. The sign was old and peeling, the shelves dusty, but the smell of paper was comforting. The owner, an older man named Mr. Harris, squinted at her as she entered. "You here to browse or buy?" he asked. "Neither," Claire said softly. I'm looking for work." He frowned. "Work? This isn't a place that pays much." "I don't need much," Claire said quickly. "I just need a chance." Something in her tone must have reached him, because after a long silence, Mr. Harris sighed. "You can help with cataloging the books, keeping the place tidy. A few hours a day. The pay's small, but it's honest." Relief washed over her like a tide. "Thank you. Truly." Her first day was clumsy. She sneezed at the dust, knocked over a pile of books, and nearly spilled ink on the register. But Mr. Harris only shook his head and muttered, "You'll learn." For the first time in weeks, Claire felt a glimmer of hope. Back at her family home, Caroline basked in her victory. With Claire gone, she held the spotlight. Their parents leaned on her, praised her, paraded her as the dutiful daughter. At dinner, she sat in Claire's old seat at the table. When Margaret hesitated for a moment before serving her, Caroline smirked. "Don't worry, Mother. I'll take good care of the family." But beneath her polished exterior, Caroline's pride began to grow unchecked. She spent lavishly, entertained shallow friends, and whispered half-truths into her parents' ears to keep them blind. In her mind, Claire was finished, forgotten. Growing resilience, Claire, meanwhile, learned to adapt. The work at the bookstore was tiring, but gave her routine. She woke early, took the tram across the city, and spent hours cataloging titles, dusting shelves, and sometimes recommending novels to curious customers. At first, she felt invisible, but gradually, she found quiet satisfaction in the work. Books didn't judge her. They didn't call her a liar. They simply existed, carrying truth in ink and paper. One evening, Mr. Harris handed her a worn copy of a novel. "Take it. You remind me of the girl in this story. Stronger than she knows." Claire smiled faintly, clutching the book to her chest. It was the first gift she had received in a long time. But resilience came with pain. Nights were still heavy. Sometimes she woke from dreams of her family, her mother's arms, her father's stern voice, Caroline's mocking smirk, and found tears streaming down her cheeks. Each time, she told herself, this pain will become strength. One day, it will all matter. The stranger. It was near closing time on a rainy evening when a new figure entered the bookstore. He was tall, dressed neatly in a dark coat, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in every corner of the room at once. He lingered by the shelves before finally approaching the counter where Claire stood. "Do you have any works on political scandals?" he asked. His voice was smooth, confident. Claire blinked. "Yes, in the back section, second row." He studied her for a moment, as though surprised she knew without checking. Then he smiled faintly. Efficient. She led him to the section, and as he browsed, he asked casually, "You're new here, aren't you?" Claire stiffened. "Yes. Just started." "I see," he said. "You seem like someone with stories of your own." She didn't answer. His words felt probing, unsettling. When he finally purchased a book and left, she realized her hands were trembling. Something about him felt important, though she couldn't explain why. Spark of resolve. Later that night, as she sat with her diary again, Claire wrote, "The world has already judged me once. I will not allow it to happen again. Caroline thinks she has won, but she has only built her throne on lies. Lies crumble. I will wait. I will gather strength, and when the time is right, I will strike." For the first time since leaving home, the thought of revenge didn't frighten her. It steadied her. The girl who had walked out of her family's house in tears was not the same girl now. She was changing, growing, preparing. The winter deepened, and with it, Claire's resolve. The notebook that had once been a refuge was now a weapon. Names, connections, events, every detail about Caroline's circle was written with the precision of a soldier preparing for battle. Daniel's guidance grew sharper, almost surgical. He taught her how to observe, how to listen without being noticed, how to plant seeds of doubt where they would grow into poison. Claire was a quick learner. Pain had sharpened her memory, and betrayal had burned away her hesitation. By the time the first frost glazed the city streets, Claire was no longer the trembling outcast who had arrived at the hostel. She was a strategist, a hunter. The first strike. It began with whispers. Claire leaked information through discreet channels, feeding Caroline's rivals with just enough truth to make them question her. At the next charity event, Caroline faced questions she couldn't answer about a deal she had bragged about orchestrating. Her confidence faltered for the first time. Though she laughed it off, Claire knew. The first crack had formed. "You see," Daniel said when they met afterward, "a reputation is glass. Once it's chipped, it will never shine the same way again." Claire's smile was cold, her eyes alight with determination. Good. Let's shatter it. The trap. Weeks later, Claire uncovered something more dangerous. Caroline, in her arrogance, had been embezzling small amounts of money from her parents' charitable trust, funneling it into her personal expenses. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to tarnish the perfect image she wore like a crown. Claire worked carefully, gathering proof, bank slips, receipts, correspondences. Daniel showed her how to anonymize the trail, how to let the truth surface without pointing directly back to her. Then, when everything was ready, she set the trap. The collapse. The Townsend estate hosted its annual winter gala, an event where the elite gathered under glittering chandeliers and Caroline shone brightest. Dressed in emerald silk, she floated through the crowd, laughter tinkling like crystal. But midway through the evening, a murmur rippled through the hall. Phones buzzed. Screens lit up. And then the whispers turned into gasps. On every device, documents had appeared, evidence of Caroline's theft. Numbers didn't lie, and neither did her signature scrawled across the slips. Her face drained of color as questions flew at her, sharper than daggers. Caroline, is this true? Did you really steal from your own foundation? How could you? Her parents stood frozen, horror dawning on their faces. The guests pulled back, as though her shame were contagious. And in the shadows, Claire watched. Not gloating, not smiling, but steady, her heart pounding with the rhythm of justice. The confrontation. After the gala imploded, Claire's parents summoned Caroline home in fury. The mansion, once a fortress of pride, now echoed with rage and betrayal. "You've humiliated us," her father thundered. Her mother's voice cracked. "We believed you. We defended you." Caroline wept, trying to twist her lies into excuses, but this time, the web had collapsed. It was then that Claire stepped from the doorway. The room fell silent. Caroline's eyes widened as though she'd seen a ghost. "You," she hissed. Claire's voice was calm, colder than winter air. "You built your empire on lies, Caroline. But lies always rot from the inside." Her parents stared, torn between shame and realization. For the first time, they looked at Claire not as the disgraced daughter, but as the wronged one. Justice served. The following weeks were chaos. Caroline was stripped of her privileges, her reputation annihilated. The charities she'd stolen from pressed charges. Friends abandoned her. Doors that once opened at her smile now slammed shut. Claire, however, refused to let bitterness consume her. She did not beg to be welcomed back into the mansion. She did not crave apologies from parents who had doubted her. Her revenge was not about reclaiming a place in their home. It was about reclaiming herself. And she had done it. Epilogue. Spring returned, softening the city's edges. Claire stood outside the cafe one morning, notebook in hand. Sarah greeted her with a hug, and Daniel offered a rare smile of approval. "You've done it," he said simply. Claire looked up at the pale sky, breathing in the air that smelled of beginnings. "No," she corrected softly. "I survived it. That was enough." She closed the notebook, no longer a weapon, now just pages filled with the proof that she had endured, fought, and won. Caroline's shadow no longer defined her. Claire Townsend was free, scarred, yes, but unbroken. And sometimes, justice wasn't about revenge burning others to the ground. Sometimes, it was about rising so high that no lie, no betrayal, could ever bury you again.